Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Tuesday, the 19th of October. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined by Joshua Barrie. Joshua, how are we doing?
Fine, Derek. Yeah, fine. What day are we on? Tuesday. Ticking along. Looking forward to the football on Thursday.
Yeah, aren't we all? Just a reminder, folks, if you're watching us on YouTube, just to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss a video. You'll get a notification to your phone or your electronic device. And of course, we've got that fantastic offer on just now to the Rangers Review. It's just £1 a month for the first 2 months and support top quality journalism covering the club you love. Now, a number of little talking points to get our teeth stuck into this morning, Joshua. One story that came out yesterday afternoon was the news from the Times down south that Steven Gerrard is apparently on a three-man shortlist for the Newcastle United job alongside Unai Emery and Roberto Martinez. Of course, Steve Bruce in the hot seat at the moment, but I think everyone assumes he's living on borrowed time. It's only a matter of time before he loses his job, given that the takeover was confirmed last week. This is a story that's not going away, Joshua, and it's sort of been ramped up yesterday with regards to the links with him being apparently on a three-man shortlist. What do you make of that?
Yeah, we were speaking off air about the reality, I guess, of if Gerrard would accept a job in Newcastle, and I don't think he would. I mean, I just don't see the appeal for him. If Gerrard didn't in his career go to another club to win trophies, and you've seen how loyal he was to Liverpool, I think if you were to ask Steven Gerrard, the one thing that's left on his bucket list to do probably in football is win the Premier League with Liverpool, which he'll hopefully do as manager one day, because that's naturally his plan. That seems to be the succession plan with Klopp, whether it be 2024, whether it be longer, because we're in 2021 and Klopp seems to be just getting better and better. So I don't see the appeal of Gerrard going in and say hypothetically say Liverpool win the next two Premier Leagues. What is the gain of Steven Gerrard of going in with Newcastle and toppling them? I know Dalglish did it with Blackburn, but I just don't see principally that it would be an appeal to him. And also, you look at all the extenuating circumstances around it, the natural media attention that's going to come with that, the asterisks that will come with every result or every eventual trophy. I just don't think. Even look at like his backroom staff. Michael Beale, I'm sure he could work with any players, but the background and development, the way that they've developed the squad here at Ibrox, can you see them going in? And also, I think, Derek, it might take one manager to go in and take Newcastle to a certain point, and then the next manager to take them to the point where they can go and challenge for the Premier League title in 6 years. I don't think Gerrard wants to be that middleman. I just don't see how practically it works. And I know the start of the season hasn't been great. I know we're going to talk about Dave King's comments about Steven Gerrard's comments at press conference about spending, but I don't see that the appeal of him going to Newcastle as a stepping stone. I think what Steven Gerrard will be focused on is turning around this season to be really successful at Rangers, having a few more successful years here, and then when Jurgen Klopp's time's up, taking over that hot seat at Liverpool.
Yeah, I see your point. Just a big hello to Owen Bradley who gets in touch. Callum has also got in touch this morning. Hi guys. He hopes that Gerrard doesn't join Newcastle and stays at Rangers because the progress he's done is exceptional. He just wouldn't be the right fit. So sort of going along the same lines as you, Joshua. But this isn't Newcastle 2 weeks ago. This is Newcastle are now, well, the richest club on the planet. It's a different ballgame now. I guess you can understand why he's been linked to a job like this alongside, of course, the Belgian boss, Roberto Martinez, and Unai Emery, Villarreal, of course, former Arsenal manager. This is the sort of, he's going to be linked to jobs like this from here on in because of the job he's doing at Rangers. I guess it's we need to get used to it, and it's maybe a good sign that he is doing a good job at Rangers, that he has been linked.
Yeah, and I think obviously in Scotland there'll be probably much more focus on the failure to win cups than look at Liverpool don't even put out a full strength team for the League Cup or the FA Cup. But yeah, I mean, again, I just think Gerrard's focus will fully be again on turning the Europa League campaign around, rediscovering form in the league. You look at his celebrations after Hibs. That's not relief. That's a man who is very, very, very invested in this project now. And again, Derek, this isn't the Newcastle of 2 weeks ago, but Gerrard had these appeals right throughout his playing career. Real Madrid, Chelsea, famously or infamously, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, for more than once. I do think that he's still, he although he went to LA Galaxy, that Liverpool's his club, and I just don't see why he would want to go and do that. I also don't get the impression that Gerrard wants to go and manage until he's 70. I think it was the Make Us Dream documentary I think you watch, and he speaks about the intensity kind of his life and why he went out to America to kind of get out the Goldfish Bowl. I think Gerrard probably, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if obviously he wants to come to Rangers and he's got the bug. I think the aim for him is to one day win the Premier League with Liverpool, get that monkey off his back, and then have a nice long retirement, because he deserves it, because he's had a very intense 40 years up to now, or 25 years professionally. I don't see him being someone who, like, Claudio Ranieri is taking his 20th job at 70. I don't think he'll be turning up at Watford at 70.
Yeah, a very good morning to Glenn, who's got in touch this morning. Good to have you along with us, Glenn. Graham mentions here, if you're off the chance to quadruple your salary, bet you would go no hesitation. It's an interesting one, of course. Any manager that goes to that job, of course, Steve Bruce is still the current incumbent, but I don't think he'll be there for too long. You're pretty much getting a blank checkbook. It's pretty much that simple. It'll be interesting to see how Newcastle fare in the January transfer window. I imagine they'll be making one or two signings, because they are in deep trouble in the Premier League as it stands. And it's certainly an interesting story, one that's not going away. And I think
that's a good point, though, Derek, as well. As it's not at the moment. You look at the squad, you look at you look at their game against Tottenham, and it will be it's not unrealistic to say Newcastle will be in a relegation fight. They probably will be, even if they do go out and sign these players, because as football always reminds us, sometimes problems cannot just be solved by chucking money at it. You look at the managing director, is still the same guy that was there under Mike Ashley. This is despite Newcastle having a wage bill that I think is pretty mid-table ranking in comparison with the rest of the Premiership clubs. It's still although the ownership's changed, it's still a badly run club structurally. The playing staff, Steve Bruce has managed to keep them up for the last, is it 2 seasons now? Season and a half. But it's not, that's not that's why I think maybe it'll be a 2-manager process to get someone who will stabilize them, who will be able to start putting the building blocks in place, but then also someone that comes in, that goes and wins you stuff. So I don't know. I don't think Gerrard will be appealed, but I get the point about the salary. But also, again, Gerrard is probably very, very rich, or is very, very rich,
he's not motivated by money. I don't.
And
think
he's not being tempted by that. Well, I'm sure Liverpool paid him handsomely, Derek, but I'm sure he could have made more money if he'd went and been the poster boy for Roman Abramovich. So I think people down south, won't realise how invested in this project Steven Gerrard is, and understandably, because I think probably he a few years ago might have not realised the extent to which he's got the bug, the extent to which he loves the intensity of managing a club like Rangers, which is, there's not many clubs that you would get that intensity at. Newcastle is probably one that's quite comparable in terms of the fan base and the size of the club. So I think he'll be here for a good while longer, and I think the longer that Klopp does well at Liverpool, that also points well for Rangers fans who want Steven Gerrard to stay.
Yeah, let's hope so. That leads us on. Dave King back in town last night, and he made a comment. He was questioned, of course. Steven Gerrard mentioned the financial backing recently in a press conference. He said that the club haven't spent a penny in the last 2 transfer windows. That led many to sort of assume he was frustrated with the club's strategy that comes in the aftermath of the defeat to Sparta Prague, when he says that big money had to be invested to compete at the European level. Now, Dave King was asked about that at a meeting of Club 1872 members last night, and I'll just read you what he said. He said, "I wasn't aware of Stephen's comment in that regard, and I'm a little surprised by it. I think obviously context of the comment would perhaps make a difference. If I could perhaps put it this way, what I think Stephen is already on record, certainly in discussions I have had with him and comments I've seen him make in the media subsequently, and having pretty much unstinting praise for the support that he's had from the board. I think that question might be related more to Europe, and it's really a positioning the club and saying that without heavy expenses in a transfer window, it's going to be difficult to make progress in Europe. I think particularly if there were ambitions this year for the Champions League. If you look at what we know now to be true, I think Stephen has placed on record his support to the board for supporting him in the transfer window." And finally said, "I think it's important. Supporters might not realise this, but the manner in which the board supported Stephen was essentially to bridge the gap that the club has got. We're a big club with big ambitions, but in a small footballing market in Scotland." So, yeah, Dave King talking about that last night, meeting with Club 1872 members. It was an interesting take on Steven Gerrard's comments. What do you make of that, Joshua? I think he's just stating a fact, Steven Gerrard, and I think some supporters just assuming maybe he's a bit disgruntled with the lack of activity in the recent transfer windows. But I guess the Rangers' transfer model is you need to buy low, sell high. But if nobody's buying your players, then gotta get stuck.
Yeah, I think practically, obviously, the Champions League would have, as we said at the time, accelerated growth. I wouldn't have been surprised if you'd seen them go and spend money on a Veerman or someone who was going to cost more than cost a little bit more. Equally, the retention of a player like Glenn Kamara is a new signing in many ways, because he was obviously out of contract next summer. I mean, I think it reminds me, Derek, of, I don't know if you remember last season, there was a moment where Sadio Mane, I know I always go back to Liverpool examples, but I just love Jurgen Klopp. When Sadio Mane kind of shunned Jurgen Klopp after a game last season, and it looked like quite a blatant kind of disrespect of his manager, and something that would really churn headlines out and spark crisis. And Klopp was asked about it in the press conference, and he basically said, "Look, if someone disrespects me once or acts out once compared to the 100 times that we've had a respectful conversation or a respectful acknowledgement, that's it's not realistic." And in this way, Gerrard has spoken time and time again about support of the board. I think one comment does not equate to the backing that he evidently does feel and has spoken about time and time again. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, he was speaking at about 8:30 a.m. in the morning after an away Europa League tie, probably a bit pissed off, probably was, hadn't slept well because that was a bad performance. I think Rangers XG was something like 0.3 in that game, 0.09 from open play. It wasn't a good performance. I think if you sat Gerrard down in the cold light of day, he would be like, he would give you a different response, like many of us would, like many of us probably sometimes say something in different context. So I think that's, Dave King's completely right to contextualise that. And in the same way with the Klopp example, it's just important to look at the big picture instead of looking at one thing and making your mind up that Steven Gerrard is unhappy with spending. I don't think he is at all. And I think if he was asked about that again, he would probably give a more measured answer. I think he normally is very measured, and also you can forgive him for one aggravation, shall we say, after a defeat in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll now touch on a couple of articles that are on the website at the moment. Joshua, you did an interesting one yesterday with regards to Rangers' first half showing against Hearts at the weekend, and why Rangers using 3 number 10s allowed them to find their level. Of course, Steven Gerrard says it was more like them in that first 45. Can you just expand on that?
Yeah, it was the same with the approach to the Hibs game, and there's plenty of writing on the website about explaining why Rangers play with more style over system. It's not rigid, and explaining in the article that formations are probably best defined by the shape without the ball, due to the kind of positional freedom that's given to a lot of players in this system with the ball. But basically, as opposed, a good indicator of if Rangers are going to line up in a 4-2-3-1 is if you don't see a Rebo advance from the left but advance from the right. So instead of a midfield 3, he's part of the 3-10s. And Gerrard said before the Hibs game they wanted to not wait. I think that was the quote, and really go for it. The intensity wasn't matched by his team selection. Then against Hearts, it really was. And what it meant was that Yanis Hadji could sit in behind the two Hearts central midfielders. The two Hearts central midfielders naturally then became occupied by the two Rangers central midfielders, and Rangers could time and time again progress the ball, and still obviously a lack of end product. And I did get some comments saying the Hearts left with the same points, and that wasn't the point of the article. It was to suggest that Stephen Gerrard said, look, this is a level we've been searching for. That's quite a big thing to say 2.5 months into a season, and that suggests how happy he was with that element of the performance. I thought without the ball as well, just committing an extra man to the first line of the press meant that Hadji could sit on Beningame or whoever was dropping in to be the single pivot. The Morelos and the other two tens, Wright and Aribo, could then push up onto the three Hearts centre backs and limit their distribution. So I thought it was instead of Gerrard going for a combative midfield, say against Dundee United as he did, moving Aribo into the front line, it was a good tactical move, and I think that deserved to be looked at as well in equal measure. We obviously touched plenty on the disdain of the second half, where it was quite a significant drop off, and Rangers then did go back to a 4-3-3, and that kind of allowed Hearts to get up the pitch easier, to get by that first line. If you look at the locations of the pressures in the second half comparatively to the first half, it's a lot deeper. Hearts had about 6% greater possession share of the ball in the second half. But within that first half, you have a template for, okay, this is how maybe Rangers increase their intensity and tempo at home. Because when the ball goes into that forward line, whether it be through Connor Goldson, whether it be through winning the ball high, John Lundstrom, there is that extra man there to quickly create quick overloads. Hadji's movement is always so intelligent, and it bore a lot of fruit for Rangers. So I think that that was a real positive that Rangers managed to start fast. Probably, can you think of another fast start of the season? I can't really off the top of my head. I think we referenced Malmo, but even then there was 3 shots in the first half hour. It's not that inspiring. So second half aside, maybe it was all down to a tactical issue, maybe substitutions, who knows? But I think certainly the fact that they managed to start with such an intensity, and Hearts had the best defence coming to Ibrox in the league that season, so they were a difficult opponent. So it focuses on that. I'll turn the question on you, speaking about Jermaine Defoe. I've seen some suggestions on Twitter yesterday. Some people saying, why isn't Defoe there? Some people saying, don't even start that conversation. Give me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I've got a piece on this morning. I think that the time is now to reintroduce Jermaine Defoe into action. He's still registered as a player. We've only seen 8 minutes of him this season, of course, brought on as a substitute at Tannadice, but Rangers have only scored 15 goals in their opening 9 games in the league. It's not good enough. Alfredo Morelos only has 2 goals to his name this season in the league. Rangers need help, and on Saturday you'd have banked in Defoe burying at least one of the chances that came their way. I think if you've got him on the sidelines, you may as well use him, stick him on the bench, and bring him on if you're chasing a goal. What say you, Josh? We know he's doing his coaching at the moment, and he was appointed that in the summer. But there's been no sort of official word that he's not playing anymore. So I'm not too sure what his physical fitness is like. You'd imagine, being Jermaine Defoe, he looks after himself, he looks after his body. I just think Rangers are in a position at the moment where they need a striker to bury some of the chances that are coming their way. They're creating so many opportunities, but they're squandering them. And I think Jermaine Defoe is a man that you would bank to put some of them away.
I guess the issue is the reduced bench, whereas last season obviously you could have 5 substitutes, and I think it's now 3 in the Premiership, isn't it? And then you probably sacrifice Fashion Sakala. I think one of the things that really harmed Cedric Kitten's chances at Rangers was that Defoe was played ahead of him a lot. And I think with Sakala, Rangers do need, presuming that Morelos isn't going to be around, he's 25, presuming probably he's sold in the summer. If he's only got a year left in his contract, then I think his contract's up in 2023. I think, Sakala was, I think, like Lundstrom, we'll just need time. And Lundstrom's a great example. We've got a piece coming out by Stevie Clifford this week about this, about the need for patience. Even the reaction in the first half that Lundstrom had against Hibs, there was still that the crowd were still a bit tentative towards him. When he got on the ball, there was a pop shot he pulled wide. John Lundstram after the Hearts game, you wouldn't hear a bad word about him. And football can switch so quickly like that. You need big characters. I think you look at Fashion Sakala's career so far. I think you look at his life story and what he's had to work for to get here. I think he's certainly going to be a strong character who's going to be able to bide his time and take his chances. I also understand, obviously, that Defoe is a finisher, and Sakala has looked a little bit rash at points. But the thing is, Derek, he's had 2 starts in the Premiership. So, and I think also sometimes against Motherwell, there was lots of little inclinations of him working well within tight spaces, of him linking up well, and people maybe sometimes overlook that a little bit because he's a little bit rash on the ball. But for me, if we had the extended bench, Defoe would be in there, no brainer. But the fact that it's a reduced bench, I don't know, but I agree with you. They need to do something, because as we said in both our pieces, I think everyone did their job up until the final shot on Saturday. And probably, if Kemar Roofe starts that game, he scores, but he was also obviously away in international break. He'll be away in another one next month. That's the reality now with him being in international. So Rangers will have to combat that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning to Linda, who has got in touch this morning. Good to have you along with us, Linda. That'll do us there, folks. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, just to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a video. You get a notification before we go live. And remember, we've still got that fantastic offer on at the moment where you can subscribe to the Rangers Review now for only £1 a month for the first 2 months and support top quality journalism covering the club you love. We'll be back tomorrow morning. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.